Took me a little while to pick up on this detail, but I haven't really heard too many people digging into it, so I wanted to talk about it. And it's also, I mean, it's a question that's come up. I like these titles that are questions because that's what Crowdsource the Truth is about. A lot of people had this misconception that I'm like some custodian of the truth, that I know the truth and I'm doling it out. I don't know anything more than anybody. I'm just trying to figure out what the hell is going on. For instance, we're presented with contradictory stuff. Like here we have the Honda Black Edition, but it's white, and it's the Teamsters. So maybe they know something about it. But there's all these sort of strange mysteries that we're faced with. I've always been fascinated by this process of discovery. We used to do that live with David Hawkins. He was really the only other co-host, not the only, but more than any other. David, like me, enjoyed making the show about that discovery on the fly. I think Charles dislikes it. Well, he definitely dislikes it when it's about something that he doesn't go into the show knowing a ton about. And I understand that Charles doesn't like speaking about things that he doesn't know about. He doesn't like speculating. He doesn't even like going on about anything unless he's studied it quite a lot. Garbage, whatever the topic. But I like discovering these things. Doesn't mean that I want to jump to a conclusion, but it's thrilling and exciting. And I'm asking today this question that I don't know the answer to. I think I might. Maybe we can figure it out. Sometimes just asking the question on a video gets people talking about it. That dude was sketchy as hell. Ducked in between the cars. Had a weird look on his face. Here's the Rivian for people who want to buy into something that's likely to go out of business. Super Saiyan. Maybe that's the super of the building. This thing, that's, government subsidized housing. I don't know, that car is pretty expensive. Anyway, that doesn't matter. But the question is, did Robert F. Kennedy just single-handedly dismantle an unconstitutional, Coast Guard disinformation operation? This is a pretty new realization, and I should reiterate, this hasn't been proven beyond a doubt. But there is a lot of evidence in the public domain that when I look at it, it causes me to believe that this is what's happening. I'm speaking specifically about this evidence related to Nathan Klopp, the guy I was talking about the other day, who came out of nowhere a month and a half ago. From my point of view, I never saw the guy before. I didn't know who he was. Never saw his Twitter account or anything he was putting on X prior to the assassination attempt. And by the way, if people aren't following on X, I recommend you do, at JG_CSTT. There's a lot of information being shared on X. And that's a battleground, it seems. I've spoken for a long time how Twitter appears, based on the evidence, to be not so much of a social media platform as it is a fifth generation weapon of war, a kind of a theater of war. It's a cyber warfare venue, right? They're sharing information. Anyway, so people know that pretty early, almost immediately that afternoon of the assassination attempt, John Cullen and I were publishing a lot of material separately, together, etc. And it just seems like this team of retired military individuals who all have kind of an interest in Blackwater, right? Blackwater Academy, Triple Canopy. Those three names, as far as I understand, are all the same company, right? Blackwater, started by Eric Prince, then became Triple Canopy. Today is academy, that might be normal. You know, my company was Multimedia System Design, Inc. Then it became Multimedia Software Design, DBA with the Secretary of State. Then it became 21st Century 3D. So it's not unusual for a company to change names. But we learned more about Eric Prince, I did, and his company yesterday at the unofficial congressional hearing hosted by Corey Mills and Eli Crane, right? I think they're running it. It was hard to tell, really. It seemed yesterday like Corey Mills was running it, but then also we had Matt Gaetz there and Andy Biggs. I mean, it was an interesting thing. It's not really like a congressional committee hearing because it's not an official committee of Congress, and so it doesn't have subpoena power. They mentioned that. I'm not sure that they had any Democrats there, so we're lacking an adversarial process, although Congress has gotten quite far away from that. I think that from the standpoint of what Congress does today, this thing that they've put together, this unofficial committee, it seems to be pretty close to equally effective as regular Congress, which unfortunately is virtually ineffective. And I'm concerned that that's basically what we're going to get to with this, because anything that they come up with, the Democrats will just say, well, this is nonsense, and you know, you didn't even have any Democrats there. And so I don't know. It was interesting to watch, but one of the things that Eric Prince said, it caught my attention. They were talking about the different functions of Academy or Blackwater or whatever it's referred to as, and they were talking about the Secret Service protecting State Department people and other high-level people in Iraq. And they said that the Secret Service determined that they were unable to do that because the way that they normally operate is that they control a bubble around the subject. And that they shut down the entire area. See, what I'm doing right now is I'm auditing what the fuck is going on with people like this.
You wondering about me or you wondering about yourself? Fucking recorded.
I'm walking around, you're looking at me.
Fucking walk, nigga. Get beat up on your whole camera.
You threatening me?
Scared? New York, get used to it.
Walk off, motherfucker. I'm recording everything, shithead. See, a lot of people noticed on Sunday's video that when I completed my route and returned home, something I do basically all the time. It would be pretty easy to determine where I'm walking to just by watching my videos, and we could have people follow me. Now, I don't know if that's what happened the other day. That could have been a fan. The guy seemed friendly. Not this guy. I'm talking about the guy on Sunday. See, it was interesting because that guy came up to me and he knew my name right away, didn't he? What have I been saying for 3 years since Oren Levi walked up to me on the street and said, I love your YouTube show, but I don't know your name or the name of the show. I've been saying for 3 years, how could he be a fan and not know my name? It's easy to adjust your bullshit plan when I tell you exactly what's wrong with it. So I'm going to be doing some things to test if I'm being actively disrupted by electronic or other means. And I'm not going to talk about exactly how I'm going to do that, but I don't think that that guy there, he doesn't seem like the type of electronic, digital Stasi type antagonist that I'm talking about. That just seems like a New York jackass. Could be, but I won't describe what he did or didn't do that caused me to believe that he's not part of what I'm talking about, but I don't think that guy was. It's unclear if the guy outside my apartment the other day was or was not, because initially I thought he was a friendly fan of the show, just saying hello. But he hung out outside the supermarket and watched me enter my apartment building and began texting on his phone while looking at me enter. That made me uncomfortable. Potential fan, if you're watching and you aren't a digitally enabled cyber Stasi stalker, feel free to contact me and we can talk about it. I don't really care about that guy if he was or wasn't. I'm more concerned with the persistent effort to stalk me that's been going on for 7 years and the abuse of lawfare that has robbed me of my most valuable resource, time. I'll never be able to get that back. There's damage that's been done to me, my business, my social life, my future. I will never get that back. That's a punishment that I have already endured. But people who want to see Crowdsource the Truth continue rather than be kicked off the internet, which is their obvious goal, I ask that you please become a sponsor on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, or subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I learned something very important about Patreon yesterday. It was a good thing. But again, I don't want to share it because every single thing I say, I run the risk of George's mentally ill wife swapping. Other people fuck this guy's wife, including his own brother. Paperclip Nazi. George's mentally ill brother, he takes everything I say and he attempts to weave it into a cause of action in some frivolous lawsuit, and it's been going on for 7 years. So now, how did Robert Kennedy do anything with the Coast Guard? Well, I don't know, but I think he did. Because you see, we spoke the other day about how the Coast Guard is engaged in this crazy thing called the Homeland Security Task Force Southeast. And look at all these things that are involved with it. It's the Department of Homeland Security in the center there, but you've got all the different logos of all these different agencies and military things and government, different law enforcement stuff. People are going to know what these logos are maybe better than me, but we've got the Department of Justice, we've got the state of Florida, all these things coming together. The Department of Health, that's the NIH, where I've found separate evidence that George's brother works there. And they're basically telling us that the Homeland Security Task Force Southeast, its components, they're engaged in a widespread messaging campaign to provide accurate information to national and international audiences. And also they're trying to fight disinformation. This doesn't make sense to me. In deterrence attempts to reach the U.S. unlawfully by sea. So they're mitigating disinformation in deterrence attempts to reach the U.S. unlawfully by sea. Now, what the hell does that mean? I'm under the impression that there are some pretty stupid people who are pretty highly placed in the U.S. military. We learned fairly recently that retired General Michael Flynn earned a 1.25 GPA. That is so stupid, you shouldn't even be allowed to graduate and claim that you went to school. They should make you continue to learn things until you're not as stupid as Michael Flynn. Because 1.25, that's failing in my book. And do we want idiots who can't even pass high school or some simple community college curriculum to get better than a D? The greatest country on earth has morons who earn Ds in school as highly placed generals? And other people look up to this moron? What's the relationship between Eric Prince and Michael Flynn? I don't know. I think this guy's going 360 over here on the High Line. What up, 360 guy? See, I designed a 3D 360 camera. I tested it on the High Line. I think people have seen a bit of that. The Trump VR experience was a 3D 360. You can't play 3D on YouTube anymore. Look, there's a bee. They're trying to cultivate bees. I lost it. They're trying to cultivate bees somehow. I saw, well, no, maybe that was Madison Square Park where they had the beehive. Yeah. So anyway, dumb people in the military, but that's not the case with the Coast Guard here. The guy who runs this thing, this is a rear admiral. I don't know what that means, but Douglas Schofield. He is the 7th District Commander of the Coast Guard, and that's the dude in charge of this task force. Now, I have no reason to believe that he's a bad guy. Seems like actually pretty good guy. He, as I understand, was recruited to the Coast Guard. I think they like actively recruited him. This guy's kind of a genius. He went to MIT. He seems like a decent guy. So, I mean, again, these are compartmentalized operations. I don't know much about this Rear Admiral Schofield, MIT, right? We see that. Flag Officer, Homeland Security Executive Seminar. Now, this was interesting to me, the Harvard Kennedy School of Executive Education. That's the second time that's come up. I don't know if people remember, well, maybe it's more than the second time, but the relevance to what we're talking about here is another dunce, Trish Negron. She went to that Harvard executive whatever. And remember, when we first met Charles has made a point of this many times. I might have forgotten about this if it wasn't for Charles making a point of it as frequently as he has, which is good. He objects to people going to that Harvard thing and then saying, oh, I went to Harvard. Now, to be fair, and in defense of Trish, who I have no need to defend, now wait a minute, did they put scaffolding back? Wasn't this all gone the other day? Maybe further down. But in Trish's defense, it wasn't so much her saying that she went to Harvard. That was George saying that. But it's an interesting similarity that I observed. Is this a deep state tactic that when they set their sights on somebody who they want to roll into something, they want to co-opt the credibility of Harvard and say, oh, that person went to Harvard, whatever. So people see this Harvard executive thing and they associate it with Harvard. And then also, what are they teaching you there? Is that some deep state? What the hell are they teaching you? Oh, wow. Holy cow. Look at this. A whole new park coming in down below. I love it. Was that clear the other day? I feel like this all came in here. Wow, that's great for people living in these buildings. You now have your own park. So if you have a dog, I don't know if they have a dog run down there, but it's nice. Definitely improving this part of town. So I guess all the Chinese people can move in after we're dead. But I had a video the other day talking about this guy, Nate Klopp, and how he kind of came out of nowhere working with Gary. And I'm talking about Gary not because he's got a competitive social media brand, but because he came out of nowhere and seems to be a military contractor who's friends with a lot of other military contractors who seem to be engaged in 5th generation warfare with normal citizens engaged in First Amendment activity on the internet. So this is explaining what's happening. Part of the Friends of the High Line commitment to ensuring the long-term functionality of the park's infrastructure, 10th Avenue Square is getting a makeover. It includes a complete replacement of the wood framing that supports the decking and the replacement of the trees that have outgrown their planters with a variety of better with a variety better suited for enduring success in this location. Somebody sent me an article about the guy who is the, what would you call it, botanist? The plant expert who's in charge of all of this planting here at the High Line. Thank you for sending that. That was useful, helpful. Teach me something about something that we're always talking about. There's a lot of people who think that crowdsource the truth means that it's like a popularity contest where if everybody says, Jason, you should look into this or that I then do that. And then some people get upset when I say, don't tell me what to do. They're like, oh, I'm a supporter, I watch your show. Thank you, I appreciate that, but that doesn't grant you the opportunity to tell me what to do. And again, I'm not trying to tell people what to do. I'm just observing that there is some number of people who would like to communicate with me. And I presume if you're doing that, it's because you want me to communicate back. And so just be aware, if you're using a fake name, if you're using a picture that isn't a person, and if you're interacting with people that I think are social engineers, it's very easy for me to confuse you for a social engineer and not understand what your intentions are. I'm talking about 5th generation warfare. So I'm saying this is a war that these people are conducting against me. The Lawfare and all that stuff. It's Charles Dunlop Jr., what is he? He's something with the Air Force. Charles Dunlop Jr. He's a major general, retired major general with the Air Force. I don't know what that even means, but it sounds pretty fancy as far as the Air Force goes. He's not a regular general, he's a major general. But somehow I think that's actually lower than a regular general. But the point of the matter is he's not a private, he's not the janitor. He's the one who says that lawfare is 21st century war fighting tactics. So I'm at war, and if you want to insert yourself into that war, what you think is sarcastic and funny, I might not agree with. So I'm simultaneously apologizing to anybody. I've had 2 or 3 messages from people saying like, oh, Jason, did you block me on Twitter? And it's like, look, I don't know. Did you say something stupid that I was likely to be offended or insulted or distrusting of? It's also possible that I just accidentally blocked somebody because they were interacting with some of these people. There's a contingency of people who, and I'm not telling anybody to not do this, you should take as much time as you feel you need to decide if anyone that you interact with is trustworthy or not. That includes me. I hope there's no baby in there. Yeah. You're still crazy to leave your property unattended on the High Line while your baby is over here. Is it just me, or does that look like somebody else's baby? But the point is, there are certain things that will cause me to suspect a person of being a social engineer and make it super duper likely that you'll be blocked. And if you want to interact with me and communicate with me, I'm trying to provide advice to help people avoid that. So what is it that Robert Kennedy did? So Robert Kennedy, speaking of lawfare, he had a lawsuit in Louisiana. Now, why did it go to Louisiana? I'm trying to remember. Because I think, yeah, they had the attorneys general of Missouri and then Louisiana who had joined. It started with, I think, Missouri, that guy, Eric Schmidt, right? And he brought the case as the Attorney General of Missouri, and then other plaintiffs joined. I think that's how Robert Kennedy got in there, and that's how he selected Louisiana. And so people heard about this, I guess 2023, July 4th. Do people remember there was that big 150-page ruling by the judge? That was Judge Doughty. A lot of people made note of that because it's unusual, first of all, for a judge to issue a ruling on a court holiday. July 4th, the court was closed. So it seemed clear to most people that Judge Terry Doughty wanted to emphasize the patriotic nature of defending the First Amendment of the Constitution, and that July 4th order had enjoined the Joe Biden administration and a variety of people named in that lawsuit, including one who I'm not even allowed to mention. This person is named in a lawsuit, former government employee, currently engaged in criminal activity, I allege, based on information and belief, public domain evidence, but I'm not allowed to speak about this person because of an unconstitutional court order brought against me. Now, I've recently begun contemplating ways to challenge that order. A lot of people who aren't me might suggest that I should just defy it. That would be challenging it. That's one way to challenge it. I'd probably find myself in court pretty quickly answering a show cause motion as to why I shouldn't be held in contempt for violating an order. That's sort of starting out behind the 8 ball and doesn't seem like the best approach necessary. Bless you. Maybe he doesn't speak English or he's a dick. But that doesn't seem like the best approach. I'd prefer to get the order overturned through normal motion practice on the basis that it's unconstitutional. But anyway, Judge Doughty enjoined the people, the defendants in Kennedy v. Biden et al., enjoined them from communicating with social media companies to block and ban and suppress Robert Kennedy. The other people didn't have standing. That's what the ruling was. This ruling that just came down 1 week ago, which I actually wasn't even looking at this. I sort of stopped looking at this case. I'll go into that in a minute, but this is 1 week ago today. Judge Doughty issues this, rather lengthy memorandum ruling. This is his order and his findings. And we just go to the conclusion here, and they're basically saying that Robert Kennedy has standing. Okay, so what that means is there was an open question as to whether these people even could sue, right? Like George's mentally ill, wife-swapping, paperclip Nazi brother, he loves to bring lawsuits for things he doesn't have standing for. In other words, he doesn't like it when I say Judge Caproni is an obese cunt and a fucking criminal. Pardon my language. It's technical terminology. But those are opinions, and Caproni is a public figure, and it's Congress who said she's a criminal, not me, John Conyers. He's a Democrat. What'd you think about the Trump assassination attempt? I knew she wouldn't want to talk about it, so I didn't want to stop. Anyway, so the Judge Doughty there in Louisiana, I love Louisiana, he wouldn't allow me to intervene in that case. And I do want to dial back something I had said about Mr. Kennedy's attorney, Scott Street. Most people have no idea who that guy is. I don't think he cares who I am or what I say. I'm pretty confident in that. But I do want to roll back something I said about Scott. I was very angry with him because he did not follow Mr. Kennedy's instructions. Now, I don't remember the exact details of this in terms of the date and everything, but prior to filing this lawsuit, Robert F. Kennedy called me. I was pretty surprised. I had been in, I forget how I initially came into contact with him. I think probably through Dr. Judy. That must have been it. Maybe email chains, or somehow I had his email address, and I had been emailing him certain information about a lawsuit that I was involved in that involves some similar topics and even similar people, person, as Kennedy v. Biden. So he called me to discuss that, and I was surprised, obviously, and pleased to receive a phone call from Robert F. Kennedy. Wow, what a cute little dog. Hi. Got a little lick there. Yeah, so he called me and we spoke for, I don't know, 10, 20 minutes, something like that. And then he went off and did this lawsuit. And the conversation wasn't about involving me as a co-defendant or co-plaintiff, or, it wasn't about involving me. It was just sort of a fact-finding conversation based on information that I had previously sent to Robert Kennedy, I think by email, because I got his phone number when he called me. I don't remember ever speaking to him on the phone before that. But anyway, so then I had his phone number, and periodically I had sent him some texts, like when he first announced that he was going to run for president. I think one of the first interviews he did was on Russell Brand. And I noticed that, the way Russell Brand does his show, I think he's just calling you on Zoom or something and then editing that later. So it's like half the screen is Russell Brand and half the screen is Robert Kennedy, and then sometimes he's cutting to a shot that's just Kennedy, and then it gets wider, you know what I mean? Because there's not two people on the screen. And in that wide shot, on the bookshelf, on the spine of one of the books, was a swastika. So I just texted Robert Kennedy saying, hey, I'm not criticizing this, just letting you know there's a swastika visible in your wide shot on the Russell Brand interview. And he wrote back pretty much right away saying, that's the rise and fall of the Third Reich. And I said, look, I'm not criticizing the book or your decision to have it there. I'm just letting you know it's visible, and I think it's the kind of thing that could give people the wrong idea. I think that's a good book to read and understand and even have it in the bookshelf, but again, other people aren't going to text him and gain this additional context and understanding. They're just like, oh my God, he's a Nazi. And sure enough, this was months before he got hit with all that nonsense where, he was like at dinner with somebody saying that, just stating that genetically engineered biological weapons could target certain ethnicities. We've heard that from other people. John Mark Dugan told us that there were documents that he had found, or no, maybe Cullen found that on the U.S. Embassy website in Ukraine, where they were looking for whatever that juice from your joints that they can use for genetic material. I forget what it is. People know, medical people know. There's some kind of something that they get DNA from, and they just wanted that only from Russians, not from Ukrainians. So the notion that someone is trying to make biological weapons to target whoever it might be, white people, black people, American people, Chinese people, Jewish people, whatever, he's just making a statement, but obviously everybody got all over him saying, oh, Robert Kennedy, he must be he's, anti-Semitic or whatever. So it was good advice that I was trying to give him about, don't give people the wrong idea by having the Nazi book out there. And by the way, the next time I saw him on an interview, the book was gone. So to some extent, there was an exchange of information that perhaps he found valuable. And when this Kennedy v. Biden lawsuit came about, I took great interest, and I said, this is good. Because Robert Kennedy is a lawyer, and I am not. And so, if I can kind of connect myself to a lawsuit that seems to be focused on the exact same problem that I'm having, but a lawyer is defending, he's got lawyers defending him, it just seemed to make a lot of sense for me to get involved in this. And the thing is, when you file a motion to intervene, or when I did, I'm not a lawyer, so maybe I did it wrong, but the other parties, the plaintiff and the defendant, they have an opportunity to tell the judge, what do you think about this guy intervening? And I think the government didn't say anything. And when it first got filed, I filed it and I emailed it to RFK. And RFK emailed me back, added his lawyer, and just said, Scott, ? Basically telling him, hey, go talk to Jason about this. So Scott Street wrote me back. He said, here's my phone number. Call me at such and such a time and we'll discuss it. I called him. He said, I'm busy. Call me later. Called him that weekend. He was doing something with his kids. Called him that Monday and he was like, stop calling me. So he was an absolute dick and remains a dick. And I was super pissed off, like, oh, I don't forgive Scott Street. He doesn't care. He doesn't, I mean nothing to him, and that's, I shouldn't. There's no reason why I would mean something to him, but the point is, me forgiving him, I said, that's all nonsense. The point is, he was Kennedy's attorney, and so getting a good outcome for Kennedy is what he's there to do. Whatever happens to Jason, I mean, I'm not criticizing him. This is a legitimate way for him to be. Screw you, Jason. Even if you could help us, I don't even have time to be distracted to listen to that because I'm laser beam focused on helping Kennedy win. And he did that. And by the way, he didn't win. He overcame the next challenge, which is a win. But what's happened here is Judge Doughty has determined that RFK Jr. and the Children's Health Defense Fund have standing, right? The stuff that George's paperclip Nazi wife-swapping mentally ill brother is always trying to sue people for. Like if I say Valerie Caproni is an obese criminal, he starts filing all kinds of things that say I'm threatening a U.S. District Court judge. I'm not doing that. No one should do anything. I'm not going to do anything to Valerie Caproni except tell people about what a fat, disgusting liar she is and how she's a criminal who should be impeached and, in my opinion, found guilty in a court of law and put in jail. Two idiots right there. So for whatever reason, he thinks he's got standing to come and tell the court about anything that I say about, you know, somebody that's not him. If he was Valerie Caproni's attorney, he could file all that. If he was Valerie Caproni, he could do that. But he's neither of those things. He also likes to complain about issues that I raise pertaining to Richard Lurie, who's a U.S. District Court. He's a clerk in the Eastern District of Michigan. So George's brother doesn't have standing to do anything in court for people who aren't George's brother. You got to be an attorney to represent other people in court. That's why some people ask me, like, hey, if you're doing this FOIA thing with Beaver County, put us on there too. And I said, I don't believe that I can do that. I think you need to hire a lawyer if you want to do that. And even if I'm wrong, because I'm not a lawyer, I'm not willing to take that risk. See, and that's another thing that somebody asking me, like, you're a jerk, Jason. You don't know me, and I'm asking you to do something that could get you in trouble. That's a complicated thing that I don't understand, that I'm gonna get mad that you don't want to engage with a stranger after 7 years of strangers on the internet constantly trying to trick you all day, every day. It's too bad Pontiac went out of business. That's a pretty junky, what is that, a Grand Am? They had some V8 cars towards the end that were plasticky and junky, but you're buying a big V8. They made another GTO, I think, that they... Anyway, forget about that. So what happened was, Doughty has determined that RFK has standing. And then, so this article, this was a little confusing. Because a lot of people, I mean, again, you know, maybe the Post doesn't know, but they're saying he can sue the Biden admin for allegedly censoring anti-vax. And then this is what I was trying to figure out. So this is, again, he hasn't won, but now the case will resume. I understood it will resume back in the district court with Judge Doughty, but they're talking about the 5th district. I don't know, maybe I don't know the terminology. I don't think that the U.S. District Court in the Western District of Louisiana, I haven't heard it referred to as the 5th district before that. The 5th Circuit is the appellate court for that district court. Maybe it's the 5th district, I don't know. But as I understand it, what this means is that he now has standing, the lawsuit can proceed. This hasn't made a finding, Judge Doughty that is, has not made a finding on the merits of Robert Kennedy's claims. He's not saying, yeah, they censored you. He's saying, you have the right to come and talk to us about this. So it's a step forward for sure, but this is how this crap works. It takes years. And see, the interesting thing is, George's fucking asshole, mentally ill, wife-swapping, paperclip Nazi brother, he does all kinds of things that I don't necessarily bother people with or talk about on the show because he's such a loser and such an inconsequential piece of shit who deserves to be rotting out in a concrete box rather than being the public menace that he is. And frankly, if his own father had his wishes, well, I won't even talk about it because the types of things that his father used to do to his brother, you can't even talk about on YouTube without getting thrown off. But yet George Henry never went to jail. Doesn't make any sense unless he was completely immune from prosecution due to being a Nazi radio technician who was so skilled that he was brought in under Operation Paperclip. Now I realize that sounds fanciful, but he did invent, according to the US Patent and Trademark Office, he was the first person to patent the invention of the full duplex radio telephone. That is the wireless technology that enables cordless phones. And is the weed store back open? Wow. So that guy I wouldn't mess with, but he says the weed store is open. Certain people deter crime just by being there. 7-foot tall guys like that. Point is, a lot of evidence causes me to believe, wow, George Henry was a paperclip Nazi, and that his son is carrying on that legacy, his sons. That's, I allege, how they got into the intelligence community, and there are other people who fit that profile. Adam Sharp. Where are your parents, little kids? Where? That down there? You guys got to be careful. Is that your mom? Not your mom? Where is your mom? Serious question, where is your mommy? Say again? That's your mom? That's your mom. Is that your mom right there with the carriage? That's your mom. That's your mom. That's the mom. Okay. Take it easy, you guys. Holy crap. Public service announcement. Do not allow your little 4-year-old kids to walk around half a block away from wherever the hell you are. Crazy. Wow. Here's another idiot with a bicycle on the sidewalk. The city is a mess, right? And so there's a bunch of morons who would say like, oh, it's New York, get used to it. No, I will not get used to it. It's New York. Get with it or get out of it. This city works when people respect each other, not when they go around riding bicycles on the street, allowing Venezuelan gangs to fester and gain power while the cops do nothing. It's really quite upsetting. But anyway, I don't know. That New York Post article doesn't seem too clear on this thing. But what I believe will happen now is Robert Kennedy will resume his lawsuit against the Biden administration in Louisiana, in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Louisiana. And the thing that's also interesting is, so Judge Doughty, after Scott Street declined to have a phone conversation with me, which I hope would have persuaded him that the information that I have is important and not included in what they have pled there and what they've filed in the court, and that he would have told the court, yeah, you know what? The Kennedy plaintiffs actually want Jason to intervene. I think that would have really swayed the judge, because you see, I think this judge has got himself a little teeny tiny man crush on Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and that's nothing gay. I'm just saying there are certain people who provoke a kind of a sense of excitement. Like I've spoken about that time we did a one-day shoot with Steven Spielberg, and everybody on my crew was like giddy, because just is like electricity in the air. We're going to meet Spielberg. When's Spielberg coming? And when you're a judge and you have, you know, particularly Dottie is going to be, I would think, Irish Catholic. Lots and lots of people have told us about how Irish Catholic families revere the Kennedys. I think it was Jason Calacanis said that his grandmother used to have 3 pictures hanging in the dining room: Jesus Christ, Robert Kennedy, and Bobby Kennedy. So I think there is a contingent of Irish Catholics who basically think those dudes walk on water, and I don't know what she thinks of the assassination, but I don't know what Terry Doughty thinks about the Kennedys, but I get the impression that he is kind of enamored with them. Look at this. We have a new Walgreens specialty pharmacy, but that's a tiny little, I wonder, has Walgreens maybe, oh God, I would cross the street and help that old man open the door, but there he is, he's in. I wonder if they have a need to have like certain like real prescriptions for, like, that old guy looks like he probably takes a lot of prescriptions that you can't just necessarily get right away. Maybe they're paring back their operation to focus on prescriptions, and the groceries and convenience items they're no longer stocking because that stuff is just stolen constantly. See that? How they've allowed just the entire way we conduct commerce to change. So that's all I'm trying to do, is tell people facts about what's going on. I don't know if it makes sense to anybody that George's brother and his cavalcade of idiots would be suing me and harassing me for 7 years over that. Hey man, HHN is the Happy News Network. Are you guys actually doing news? What are you happy about?
Life is just good to be alive, man. Check out Happy News Network or I'll kill myself on God.
You can't say that on YouTube, dude. Fucking idiot. See, you shouldn't talk to idiots. Those guys are idiots. Hopefully that doesn't do anything to the video, but if it does, now is a good opportunity to become a sponsor on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. That's the best way to do it. $3 a month plus a 58-cent Odyssey fee. You're supporting independent technology and independent journalism, and that guy can talk about whatever kind of stupid stuff he wants to on Odyssey without running the risk of getting kicked off. So the thing that's super duper interesting, I don't know, do I want to talk about this yet? I guess we can, because it's already happened. So in addition to suing me for the past 7 years and harassing, there's a barracuda, my octogenarian parents who have nothing to do with this, and harassing that woman, Erin, who appeared on the show to tell us about her experience witnessing. Oh, what happened? Something happened. She came on the show to tell us about her experience as an eyewitness to the Trump assassination attempt, and then George's brother found out where she works, contacted her office, contacted the Secretary of State, making all kinds of problems for this woman. I don't know that woman. What if that's her only source of income and George's brother just got her fired? Does that make you think that he's a nice guy and an honorable military veteran who should be revered and honored and treated with respect? Or does that make you think he's a reprehensible psychopath and a criminal? And I say he's a psychopath because, as I understand it, psychopathy is characterized by a lack of empathy, not caring what your actions do to your fellow humans. So in other words, he's so driven to terminate this show and to stop me from talking to people about things which, if they're as stupid and incorrect as he says, it should be pure irrelevancy. He shouldn't care about the people who watch this show, but yet he does. He's driven for 7 years to end the show, and I don't know what happened. I didn't want to get back in touch with Erin because she might have a very negative view. The other thing that George's brother is doing is contacting anyone that would have me on their show and then threatening to sue them, which he doesn't even need to follow through with because, you know, if somebody gets a letter after having me on their show one time, they're just going to say, you know what? Let's have guests on that don't get me lawsuit letters sent. But you see, George's brother, he does that every day. And so he's sending me the letters that he sends to the Secretary of State in Pennsylvania and the office where this woman works, and to Dr. Jason Dean, and to my parents, and to the Department of Health. And I mean, he's a maniac. He's literally a psychopathic stalker who should be plucked out of wherever he is by the police, put in handcuffs, put in jail, put on trial. He should be found guilty, and he should be stuck in jail for at least the 7 years he's robbed from me, so that I don't have to deal with that piece of shit. But until that happens, he's doing this. The thing that's interesting is, I think I might need to do a counter lawfare report about this. Yes, that's the idea. I will do a counter lawfare report about what I think is actually going on. And say that way, people who are truly interested, they're already sponsors. They sponsor the show on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, or subscribestar.com, or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And what I'll do is, we'll have a sponsor-exclusive counter lawfare report where I will explain in depth why I believe. Now, you know it's dangerous and illegal to ride a bicycle on the sidewalk, right? Could you remove that from the sidewalk, please? Could you remove the bicycle from the sidewalk right now, please?
Go there.
Yes, but not on the sidewalk, you're not. Do it in the street. You see the police right over there? I don't give a shit. Get the fucking bicycle off the sidewalk. Fuck you. Okay, so now we're gonna see. Is somebody waiting over here? Did people see what I posted on Twitter about a woman who's having spinal fusion? Excuse me, on X, @JG_CSTT. There's a woman having spinal fusion because somebody on an electric bike crashed into her on the sidewalk and sped off. I'm sure that guy was just going right over there too. I don't give a shit about your excuse. This is ridiculous. The crumble thing is every day. We've got a mad crush over here. This is like, I don't know what's going on with these cookies. But look at that. People going nuts with the cookies. Anyway, we'll have a counter lawfare report tonight. We will take a look at, maybe that's my phone. It is. Okay. We'll have a counter lawfare report tonight. I'm going to explain to everybody exactly what the hell is going on that Robert Kennedy doesn't even know. George's brother